Good morning, students. Today let us study about learning process and motivation. Learning is a key process in human behavior. It refers to a spectrum of changes that take place as a result of one's experience. Learning may be defined as any relatively permanent change in behavior or behavioral potential produced by experience. Changes to practice and experience and relatively permanent alone are illustrative of learning. Learning plays very important role in our life. Let me say some definition regarding learning. Any relatively permanent change in behavior or behavioral potential produced by experience is known as learning. Learning which helps to modify the behavior of an individual. Coming to the second definition, the term learning covers every modification in behavior to meet environmental requirements. This definition is given by Gardner Murphy. Indeed, each and every individual goes to the different situation and where he is supposed to adjust with the environment. Definitely, learning will help an individual to meet the environmental requirements. One more definition regarding learning. Learning may be considered as a change in insights, behavior, perception, motivation, or a combination of these. Indeed, learning usually helps an individual to change the behavior as well as to grasp the information and to motivate himself in order to improve his personality as well as in order to formulate a bright future. Learning is the process of modification of human behavior through experience and training. The change that takes place in the learner is manifested in the form of a habit, outlook, attitude, skill, understanding, knowledge, mastery, and insight. So all these aspects says that learning is having its own importance in our life. The process of learning is having certain distinctive characteristics. Now let me say something about the nature or characteristics of learning. The first nature or character of learning is a continuous process. As we know, learning is a lifelong process. Each and every individual at a different stage and at a different age learns many things. A child, an adult, or even elderly people learns many things in order to lead a good life. So in this sense, learning, particularly in education, it is a continuous process. The second character is learning involves some kind of experiences. No doubt, a child or an individual have different kind of experience in their daily life, and each experience gives different kind of insight to an individual. So in this sense, experience itself helps us to learn many information and many subjects. Coming to the third character, learning prepares an individual for adjustment. A human being is supposed to adjust at different situations. So in order to have such kind of quality or trait, it is very essential to learn some essential life skills. So in this sense, learning helps an individual for adjustment. The next character is learning is purposeful and goal oriented. So any kind of learning is having some purpose, any kind of learning is having some goal. The learning process which is having purpose and goal is having a more weightage and which gives a good fruit. Coming to the next point, that is learning leads to changes in behavior. No doubt learning leads to make some kind of desirable changes in the behavior of an individual. Even during the student life, students change their behavior with the help of learning. Then the next characteristics of learning is it is a very comprehensive process. Learning is having its own broad meaning because with the help of learning we can achieve cognitive development, affective development and psychomotor development. With the help of all these three domains, we can achieve all-round development of personality of the child. In this sense, learning is very comprehensive in nature and which helps to develop a balanced personality. The next character is learning is universal. Yes, as we know, for each and every individual, learning is must. Without learning, we cannot grow. Without learning, we cannot make any changes in our life. And therefore, during the student life also, the learning is essential. Even our personal life also, learning is very, very essential. In each and every sector, in each and every area, usually we can find learning. That's why it is having universal nature. The next character is the behavioral changes that occur due to learning are relatively permanent. So whatever changes we can find in an individual, usually that is a permanent change is known as learning. Because when we find a permanent change that may be helpful to an individual as well as to the society, such kind of desirable changes is known as learning. Then the ninth point regarding characteristics of learning is it is depending upon practice and experience. With the help of practice and experience, an individual come to know many things. As there is a saying, practice makes man perfect. Similarly, experience itself gives a lot of experience to an individual. That's why almost all learning is depending upon good practice and good experience. An individual can get direct as well as indirect experience wherein he or she learns many things, and that kind of information will be very useful to an individual in order to have a good personality. That's why learning almost all depending upon practice and experience, and it is very essential to have good practice and good experience. Last but not least, the last character is there is a close relationship between learning and interest. Usually, there is a direct relationship between learning and interest. If an individual is having interest, he will learn the things very easily. If an individual or a student is having an interest in a particular subject, he will learn the subject or the concept very easily. If a particular student is not having any kind of interest in a subject or any content or any concept, he will not learn the subject in a most easiest way. That's why there is direct relationship between learning and interest. These are some of the important characteristics of learning. Now, let me say something about components of learning. Learning is having some components. Without these components, we cannot find learning. If learning takes place, these 5 components are very, very essential. Then which are these 5 components? 1. Learner. Learner is the center point of learning process. So here the learner learns many things, many subjects, many contents in order to have good personality or in order to gain the knowledge. That's why without learner there will be no learning process. Coming to the second component, learning situation. A child or an individual will learn different kind of subjects at a different situation. what is required here? A good situation is needed. A good environment is needed. A healthy environment is needed. So in a pleasing situation or environment, a child or an individual learns many things. It may be classroom or outside the classroom. The students will learn many things in a good situation. That's why the situation is also most important component in learning process. Then third component is learning process. The learning process and the speed may not be same in all the individual or in all the subjects, because learning process and speed may changes from one individual to another individual. Similarly, the learning process may be changed from one subject to different subject. Similarly, learning process may be changed from one situation to another situation. All individuals may not process or may not learn in the same speed. Some students may learn a particular subject very quickly, whereas some students may learn a particular subject slowly. So this kind of changes will be there. It means learning is having its own process. The fourth component is learning subject or the content. So this is also one of the most important component in learning process. So without subject or without content, we cannot learn anything. There should be some subject, there should be some content. So a beautiful and useful content gives good learning. That's why the learning almost all depending upon the nature of the subject or the nature of the content. So this is the one of the most important component in the learning process. The last component is the teacher or the instructor and facilitator. In teaching or learning process, particularly in this particular system or in education system, teacher plays very significant role. Without the teacher, it is very difficult to gain new knowledge. So in the learning process, students will gain knowledge with the help of the teacher or instructor or facilitator. Here, teacher helps the student or learner to know many things, to gain the knowledge, to acquire the information. So in this regard, the teacher in learning process is having his own weightage and role. So without the teacher or instructor, we cannot find good learning. That's why the teacher also plays very important and significant role in learning process. So dear student, these are the 5 important components usually we can find in learning process. So learning is an inward process and is different from performance. We can see that performance is a person's observed behavior or response, but learning we cannot see. Learning cannot be observed, but we can observe the action or the performance, that is the product of learning. So on the basis of our performance, the teacher may know a particular concept have been understood by a student. So these are some of the information related to learning. Thank you, students.